Hello again, and today let's delve into a mysterious story that took place in 2003 when I was just 15 years old and living in a small city where everyone seemed to know each other. Back then, I was very shy and often used the internet as a way to meet people. During this time, instant messenger was still quite popular among teens in my area. I would often stay up late adding new friends and chatting with them, searching by my city's name and adding everyone I knew from school. That's how I met Sarah. We began chatting innocently enough, with the usual greetings. But would those conversations lead us to a place neither of us ever imagined? Welcome. It was 2003. I was 15 years old and living in a small city, the kind of place where everyone seems to know everyone else. I was very shy back then and often used the internet as a way to meet people. During this time, instant messenger was still pretty popular among teens in my area. I would often stay up late, adding new people and chatting with them. I would do this by searching my city and adding everyone I knew from school. This is how I met Sarah. We began chatting innocently enough. The normal, "Hey, what's up?" Sarah was a self-described 17-year-old girl with short brown hair and a bit nerdy. We hit it off pretty fast. We had so much in common, and I found it easy to open up to her, although I thought it was strange that I had never seen her at my school. I go to the Christian school, explaining why we had never met. We continued chatting for some time, and I eventually give her my home phone number, and we would talk regularly over the phone, until one day she asks, "Would you like to hang out sometime?" Without hesitation, we make plans for me to go over to her house, hang out and watch movies. The day finally came for us to meet. I make my way across town to the address she gave me, which was a small apartment building. Slightly confused of how she and the rest of her family would fit in such a small space, I make my way up the stairs and knock. I am immediately greeted at the door by a woman, maybe in her late 20s or perhaps even her early 30s. I knew this was Sarah, but she didn't look anything like she appeared to be online. I was instantly weirded out, but I followed her into her small one-bedroom apartment. "So, are your parents home?" "No, it's just me here." I am now sitting awkwardly on the couch. She's looking at me from across the room. "Do you drink?" Water?" I joke. We both share an awkward laugh as she poured me a glass of wine. I never take a sip of it. She then sits close to me after popping in a bootleg copy of Finding Nemo. "My brother got this for me while it was still in theaters. He's like a hacker, something." "Oh, cool." At this point, she was very close to me. I am uncomfortable, and being the socially awkward person I am, I shift to the floor. So I am now sitting on the floor with my back against the couch. She then straddles me from behind. "Her, you work so tense. Just relax. I'm really good at this. I can make you feel so good." She begins rubbing my back. I lean forward and say, "Thanks, but you don't need to do that. I'm fine." I then explain that I should get going. She responds by pointing to her bedroom. "You can stay the night if you like. I've never had a guy in my bed before." She keeps making sexual advances, telling me how it's been so long, and she wants to be with a nice guy like me. All the while she keeps touching my arms and face. Now, at this point in my life, I was still a virgin, but this lady was not going to be the one to change that. I talk my way out of the situation and head home. Over the next few days, I get several messages. Hey, I miss you, babe. When are you coming to see me again? I'm sorry if I made you feel uncomfortable. Eventually, I cave in and respond, asking her why she lied and what her deal was. She told me that she has had a hard time meeting friends, and she doesn't like people her own age. I felt bad for her, and we make plans to talk in person. Please remember I was only 15. I didn't fully grasp how dangerous this entire situation was. A couple of days later, I ride my bike to her apartment. Once inside, I'm greeted by not only her, but her parents as well. They introduce themselves. Well, there he is. They finally get to meet Sarah's new boyfriend. Her dad jokes. We've heard so much about you. She's always going on about how great you are. Her mom follows up. I instantly regret my decision to come back here. It seemed that this woman's parents were also whack jobs. Sarah then grabs my hand and laced our fingers, then gave me a creepy smile. Apparently, her parents were just stopping over to pick something up, and were actually on their way out when I showed up. I was going to get out of here. Now would be the chance. I grabbed the box her mom was about to pick up. Hey, I'll take this down for you. It's no problem at all. Her mom smiles. Oh, he's the keeper, sir. I help her parents load the box into their SUV and hop back on my bike. I was just swinging by to say hello. I should probably get going now. Sarah then wraps her arms around me and kisses my cheek, then whispers, You're mine forever. I ride home as fast as I could. I planned on never talking to Sarah ever again. She dropped me a few more messages and called my house a couple of times, but I never responded. I don't know whatever happened to her, and I don't know why her parents ever questioned my age. They just seemed to be okay with it. I felt something was off about that entire family, and I have a feeling that something terrible would have happened to me if I had continued seeing Sarah. Back in 2010, I was 8 years old. My sister got a Sony laptop for her 13th birthday. Back on the family computer, whenever she had the chance to do so, she would always be on it, talking to her friends on Chat Avenue. She was on it so much that they made her a moderator. So, of course, driven by pride and popularity, she went straight back on it the day she received her laptop. Now, she had a lot of friends on there that she would chat with, but there was one person in particular that she was constantly talking to, a user by the name Cody240. Cody introduced himself as a 15-year-old boy from Manchester. Since we're from Kent, we thought he meant Manchester, England. We would later find out that he traveled from America. Cody seemed to be head over heels in love with my sister, to a point where it was kind of disturbing. When she got home from school, he would already be there, waiting for her. They would talk late into the night. I would be up on the top bunk drifting off to sleep, and she would still be talking to him. They would sometimes cam as well, and he would even say hello to me if I was in the background, but he never showed his face, something that we should have saw as a red flag. He just wore these long hoodies with his head down, and said it would ruin his confidence because he always felt ugly. Most of the time, Cody was very nice to my sister, but sometimes things would change. If she wasn't on immediately when she got home, or if we went on holiday, he would become emotionally abusive and would spread rumors about my sister, telling everyone that she was a whore, and sent him naked pictures and talks about them behind their backs, all of which were untrue. They would ban him, but he would come back with different names and sob stories until people pitied him enough to let him back in. My sister would cry her eyes out when she found out about what Cody said about her. But being the kind person she is, she always gave him another chance until the cycle repeated itself to where enough was enough. And in March of 2011, after almost a year of talking to him, she gave in and told all the other mods to ban him on site. Fast forward to the summer of 2011, and we haven't heard anything from Cody. I'm playing with my friends at lunch one day at summer school when the lunch monitor comes and tells me that my dad is in the waiting room. I found this to be odd. My dad was usually asleep by now. It was 12 and he works graveyard shift from 10 p.m. to 10 a.m., 5 days a week. Nevertheless, I go to the office and the receptionist directs me down to the waiting room. I enter, and no one is there. So I sit down for a while, wondering what could be going on. I then see a silhouette from outside the glass windows. For around 2 minutes, they just stood there. I finally asked, "Dad?" A man then opened the door and just stares at me, smiling. Whoever this was certainly not my dad. And if this man was Cody, he was definitely not 15 years old, more like a late 40s man with poor grooming skills. He was grinning in such a way that it reminded me of those creepy dental adverts. He places a note on the chair next to me and walks away, vaulting over the hedge outside, and runs down the road in the direction of my sister's secondary school, which also had a summer program. I pick up the note. I tried to read the scribbly handwriting as best as I could, before crumpling it up and putting it into my jumper sleeve. As I walked out of the waiting room, I became scared for my sister. This is what the note said. "If I don't find you, at least you will know how much I care from this letter. We are meant for each other. I came all this way for you. You know I would do anything for us to be together. You belong to me. I have no reason to live without you. It'll be hard, but you can save me. You are one and only." The receptionist asked me if I was all right. I told her yes, but as soon as I was out of sight, I began to cry. When school finished, I went and got my bike and rode fast, despite the road being a bumpy, typical countryside obstacle course. In the end, I fell off my bike, but I had so much adrenaline running through me that I just got up and sprinted all the way to my sister's school. I stopped outside of the gate, and that's when I saw that same man waiting outside with his arms crossed. There was something metallic glistening from his side pocket. It appeared to be a butter knife. I didn't want to run into him again, so I just put my hood up and calmly walked across the road. He was now looking at his phone and texting, and kind of bobbing his legs, like you do when you're waiting impatiently for something. If this man was, in fact, Cody, how could he have found us? And where was my sister now? I then remembered it was a Tuesday, meaning that my sister's last two periods were at the local church. I guessed I had about 5 minutes before it hit 3:30, and I was now out of the view of the school, so I had time to run. I arrived just in time as she was leaving the church with a couple of her friends. I told her that there was a man here for her, and gave her the crumpled up note. She and her friends began reading it. She then grabbed me, and we started to run. I asked her why we were running, but she just kept pulling my arm and urged me to run faster. It wasn't until we got back to the house that she told me the note was written on a page from her school planner, which she left on the corridor shelf. That's when I realized this man had already been in our house. Once inside, we woke up our dad and told him about what happened. He read the note, and soon after he called the police. We came down to the station, and I gave a description of the man. 2 weeks pass. Nothing. Another 2 weeks go by, and we end up going back to the police. They discovered that he was from Manchester, New Hampshire, but he was now long gone, and there were no further updates. My sister stopped going on Chat Avenue after that, but that was only because the other moderators had warned her that Cody had come back and kept telling everyone that he was going to come for her, and that sooner or later, she'll regret leaving the love of her life. America Online was a big thing when I was 13. In other words, for my generation, AIM, which stands for, you guessed it, AOL Instant Messenger. It was around 2002. I had just turned 13 and was in 8th grade. I went into chat rooms many times by myself or with friends just goofing around. Unfortunately, unsolicited photos were a thing back then, but you could usually stay clear of it depending on what chat room you were in. I didn't have any photos of myself. Back then, you would have to take a photo using a digital camera, then upload it yourself. Plus, I was 13 and self-conscious, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. But one day, a guy popped up on my screen, wanting to chat. It went fine at first, and we quickly fell into this pattern of talking. His name was Dave, and he lived in California. Eventually, he started telling me that he loved me, etc. The problem was he was, quote, 19. Now, I'm not proud of this, but at first, I sent him pictures of some random girl and said it was me. He instantly fell for it, telling me that age was just a number and how mature I was. No, at this point, he didn't live in state, so I figured that there wasn't really any chance of us meeting. Eventually, he told me he and his mom were moving to a city that was about an hour and a half away from me. He started begging me to come see him. I eventually had to break the catfishing and told him the truth, saying the pictures I showed him weren't of me. He was furious. Dave forgave me a few days later, saying, "Look, I still want to meet you because I love you." All the things you say to manipulate a young girl. I think back and I'm like, wow, I was only 13. So I told my best friend about everything and wanted her to come with me to meet him. There was this whole plan about him driving to see me and going to the movies. I would finally get to meet who I thought was the love of my life. I had been brainwashed into believing that this was normal. I didn't tell my mom, of course, and honestly, she didn't notice any of this. She has never been too involved, if you catch my drift. So the day that me and my friend were going to meet up with Dave, my friend's mother picked us up from school, then said something to me that made my stomach drop. "You're not going to the movies tonight, and you're not going to meet that man. You're going to get seriously hurt or kidnapped, and I can't allow you guys to go." I cried and cried. I honestly thought I could handle everything. She told me that she wasn't going to tell my mom, but I had to promise to never speak to Dave ever again, and to never plan to meet a stranger online. Dave ended up showing up, but was very upset that I wasn't there. He later went on Instant Messenger, flying off the handle. What he said scared me. It was then that I realized how close I was to this man being near me. I never spoke to Dave again, and I've learned a valuable lesson. Online, no one is ever really who they appear to be. I was never able to confirm who Dave really was, and if he was even 19 years old, living with his mom. Me and my friend could have been kidnapped, or worse. When I realized the truth about Dave, An overwhelming fear filled my heart. His words felt like a sharp knife, cutting deep into my mind and making me understand just how close I was to someone I didn't know. From that moment on, I never spoke to Dave again, and I learned a valuable lesson. Online, no one is really who they claim to be. I was never able to confirm who Dave really was, or if he was even 19 years old living with his mom. My friend and I could have been kidnapped or worse. This video has come to an end. What do you think about this story? Don't hesitate to share your theories in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I am Midnight Shadows, and now, goodbye and see you next time.